Welcome everyone to Awesome Truth, a wrestling book club. I'm your host, Steve Semino, and with me as always is my co-host, Walt Schwank. Hey, Walters.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
My friend, it is going very well. We are back on Awesome Truth, and today, Walt, we are talking about a documentary that is a little old, but is very relevant to what is going on in the current wrestling world. Of course, I'm talking about AJ Styles and his episode of WWE 365, which is in the Vault, Walt. It's on the WWE Vault YouTube. It's a network doc. I'm sure it aired on the actual network, certainly from the network era. But we're talking about it because AJ just retired. We'll see how much it sticks, but he is ostensibly retired from wrestling. And so we wanted an excuse to talk about AJ. And it was like, well, I guess we'll watch a documentary from when he beat Jinder Mahal on SmackDown.
I mean, to be fair, it was a very big year for AJ and this doc, and so it was interesting to revisit it. It has nothing to do with latter day happenings with AJ, but I will say it was nice to revisit one of his more memorable years with the company. Um,
Yeah, especially because we talked about these 365s before, where we're like, what you all have control over the schedule and everything, and you plan these, and nothing happens. Like you do not pick an eventful year, like or the year does not go as planned or whatever it is. But the end outcome is one of these specials with not a lot of meat to it. So, like you said, it was nice to see one. We're like, wow, he won the belt and held the belt for longer than like anybody. That's actual substance. Hooray!
yeah, and this particular doc gives us something to at least like there was a lot of memorable matches in this run. So it was interesting to revisit it, even if like Michael Rappaport, you know, put put a interesting spin on some of the happenings.
My
That's,
second note in my notes was the first note was about the Imagine Dragons songs that bookend this thing, and my second note was why is Rappaport getting these gigs? Like, what is this? That combo of things, Imagine Dragons and Michael Rappaport, is not something I really enjoy. That's not a sandwich I want to eat.
there's definitely a time and a place for both of them. Is Michael Rappaport still considered a celebrity? Like,
Well, do you watch Traders? Because I do not, but apparently he is on the hit show Traders, I believe on the Peacock app. And so I think
uh,
he is like on it this season, and everyone hates him because he's an asshole and he's bad at it. And I think there's a litany of reasons why I don't like him. But he's been in the news a lot lately. Like it's one of those things I don't read on Vulture or whatever, where I go, oh, I don't watch Traders, so I don't care. But like his name keeps showing up in the headlines. So to answer your question, I think weirdly he's around for better or worse. Sounds like worse.
no, okay. Well, I mean, I guess he has been in these docs for WWE as like a narrator, and maybe he is the 365 narrator specifically, but.
I think he is. That sounds right. I bet if we went back and watched them all again, or even just loaded them, which I don't want to do, I think that does ring a bell, which makes I don't really understand. Like, I know he's got like a gritty New York voice, but he also is not just good at enunciating or like, it's just, you're choosing
Yeah.
style over substance there so heavily. And a bad style, like a clunky, just style that I do not think is engaging or makes me want to watch these documentaries more.
His voice is distinct enough where you feel like you should like care or know, but like not good enough where you're noticing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and if they were
So
doing a documentary on Madison Square Garden shows, I would go, of course, obviously Michael Rappaport can do that. AJ Styles, like, there's no link there. It's like it's the furthest thing for a Michael Rappaport style
yeah,
guy. So I get that he might do this series, like you said, but I just don't understand that impetus in the first place.
yeah, it's Michael Rappaport's just Northeast accent coupled and juxtaposed with like, oh hey, oh
Yeah, the most like pleasant Southern man of all time.
yeah. I mean, AJ, that was one of my takeaways with this. AJ is a very pleasant
He
human.
seems like the nicest man in the world. Like all he wants to do is wrestle and hang out with his family and play video games and buy video game accessories and systems.
Yeah.
Like he seems like just a very chill, nice man. And it is great to see someone who does not seem like he has any pretensions or any bullshit. Like he's just like, I show up. This is a job. I didn't know I was gonna love it. Now I love it. And now I'm just like sort of doing my thing and looking forward to being done and hanging out with my kids.
Yeah, I mean, I part of me kind of wishes he was riddled with some level of controversy, but
For the
um,
sake of us having more
sadly,
to discuss, maybe.
yeah, sadly, he's not. He's just a good dude, and he's great at wrestling, and that's it. And he's a fan, and his family loves him, and he loves his family, and I can get behind any
Yeah.
gaming enthusiast
Although I did
into
not want him to
wrestling.
buy a Jaguar, though. I was like, please, I know you want it before the story, AJ, but like, you don't want to have a Jaguar. Like, trying to play those old clunky games must absolutely suck at this point.
Yeah, there's got to be an emulator, or I didn't think he had to go to Akihabara
Yeah,
to
that's right. I remember
go.
trying to play Metal Gear Solid 3 a few months ago, and I was like, man, the controls on this are dog shit. Like, this is really hard to play, having played modern games that move so smoothly and the buttons all make sense. You're just like, man, this is just not fun. So I can't, I know older games sometimes are a little better because they're so rudimentary, but I don't know. That's right in that sandwich era where I bet the games do not hold up at all.
Yeah, I also don't remember any of the classic Jaguar games,
That's
so
true.
I'm like, well, I wouldn't even like. As a guy who likes retro gaming, I wasn't even that excited to see him pick that up.
I hope WB came up to him and they're like, AJ, if you want to buy something funny for the story, like we'll pay for it. And he's like, well, and then I'll make a whole song and dance about buying a Jaguar for $1,000 or whatever. Like, I hope they at least chipped in and covered the cost to have some content, you know?
Was that the biggest thing that happened that year outside of the title?
Yeah, the biggest thing happened in Japan, at least. He went to Japan and he bought a console.
Yeah, and he also went to that steakhouse too, which I
And
thought
he went
was
to the steakhouse with the Good Brothers, yes. Who I'm like, oh, the Good Brothers, they were a thing too. Yeah, they were hanging on coattails for a while, you know?
yeah, I forgot that they existed until that segment, but it was a
Yeah.
good, it's a fun segment, and also I never seen the because you hear about the jacket, and you hear about it, but I've never actually
Mhm.
seen the inside of it. Understandably, it's just like an assuming small Japanese steakhouse.
Yeah, but
For some
it
reason,
just happens to be a wrestler central, right? They just cater to wrestlers and it's like a rite of passage type thing.
I imagine it being like an old '70s New York style steakhouse. But then I'm like, wait, why did I assume that it's Japan? Like it's going to be in some like the commercial building, and it's
Yeah.
gonna
Tiny
give it to
little
me up
place.
seven
Yeah.
flights of stairs. Yeah,
That's
like
right.
that's more the vibe of like Tokyo style steakhouse.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, we
Um,
should say, in case I'm sure everyone is aware of this listening, but the reason we're doing this, as we said, is because AJ retired and he went out in a way, like, and we'll see how long this holds up. Like, there's already rumblings I saw that this is, perhaps a time off retirement and not a retirement. But either way, he, storyline wise, he retired in a match with Gunther that was relatively, little fanfare. It's sort of everyone, if you read online, people kept saying it was going to happen eventually. And then it seems like he just supercharged it and wanted to go out, somewhat abruptly. And they folded into the Gunther retiring guy's storyline. But yeah, but just watching this documentary, just my first thought was he went out sort of the way he was, which is, pretty understated, certainly for a wrestler, and didn't need all the pomp and circumstance, like he's just like, I'm done. And he had a match and he's done.
Too bad it happened in Saudi Arabia. Like
Yes.
it would have made more sense in like Orlando
Yes,
or Georgia.
they could have picked any number of cities that he had a connection to, and instead it was the weirdest, least appealing Royal Rumble of all time. But
Uh, Also, I loved how they did it to boost Gunther's career-ending ways to then have him not win the Royal Rumble. It's like,
yeah, he
well,
just
that doesn't make sense either.
yeah, it's Roman must pose in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis want their mega stars, and so they get the Roman win, I guess. Who knows? But it is a good point. Like they've been puffing Gunther up so much, you think it would be the logic, like a reign of terror type deal. He's just running over everybody. But now he just beat AJ, and it sort of makes AJ's loss even smaller, in retrospect. It's like, oh, he beat AJ with the head of steam. He came in second. Like it doesn't. There's not a real story there. But I would argue that's been the way WWE has been for the last year now is a lot of stop start wrong turn bullshit that doesn't really add up.
Yeah, so maybe it's a good thing that AJ kind of just chose his spot and just
Took an
said,
exit ramp and was like, I'm all set, y'all. See ya.
yeah, because yeah, I mean, it's been some curious decision making, but I mean, the match itself I mean, I heard some people say they really liked it, but to me, it just felt pretty much like a Raw match, or I guess in AJ's case, a SmackDown match because he's been more synonymous with SmackDown than Raw, I
Hmm.
guess I would argue. But
Sure, yeah, I think that's true.
so it just felt like a TV match. I'm like, cool. That's not really what I would have
Do you think that's
wanted.
because of the lack of build up or the lack of like, just it was just sort of two guys wrestling with a stipulation or like or do you think it was just the content of the match? What made you feel that way?
It just felt like a paint by numbers
Mm,
match where it's like we're just going for the sleeper from or the calf crusher 5 minutes in. It's like, okay, cool.
yeah.
I can see where this is going. And it was fine. I mean, maybe I'm being a harsh critic, but it was pretty uh not a retirement match.
Yeah.
It was a match and someone happened to retire at the end of it.
Yeah. That's the gist I got too, having not seen it yet, but having heard about it. And yeah, and like I said, maybe that's part of AJ's thing is he didn't want to blow it all up on his way out or, make a whole to do. But it is weird because he has been such a stud since he came in. What's the exact year he came in? Do you know? Like I don't remember. I know we watched the Royal
The
Rumble
two,
that he debuted at your apartment in DC, but do you remember what year it was?
I think it was 2016.
So it was 10 years basically. On the
Yeah,
nose.
yeah, because they celebrate 10 years of AJ this year. So
Okay. Wow. So 10 years and like an insanely good 10 years, especially for a guy who certainly was no spring chicken when he came in. Like he's been amazing. And I think this doc does a really good job, even though like you said it was quite many years ago that the events occurred. It does a great job of showing you like what his deal was and why perhaps he adapted so quickly to WWE's style and to just, sort of being a top guy there. Like he's just a pro's pro, he goes out there and does his thing and makes things feel important. And like he's never been a great promo or like a plus promo. And he's like you said, he's gotten a little old in terms of his work rate, but like he's just so solid at both those things. Like you're getting a decent match and you're getting a promo that is, believable and genuine and organic. Like I feel like he has those things going for him. So you're if AJ's involved, you're never getting something subpar. You're getting something decent, too good, too great.
I, I think he was a perfect SmackDown. It sounds like like throwing shade, but I think he's a really good SmackDown performer in a sense that like he was the main event. He carried the title many times, and like there's just so much more bullshit on Raw. It's like, oh, you need to be such a good promo. I'm like, why can't you just be like an indie darling that just like wrestles well and like we as the fans invest in this guy. It's like that's all we really needed for a lot, and that could apply to a lot of people. But I think for me, watching this back and him going through memory lane and stuff about Japan, about TNA, he has like a moment of he's in like Orlando, like, oh, this is where it all began. And you see the six-sided ring, I'm like, ugh. But no,
Michael Deutsch was getting goosebumps when he saw that scene too. He's like, "Oh, the six-sided ring."
yeah, I mean, not to throw too much shade at classic, classic TNA, but um, it was it's kind of incredible why anyone thought this guy wouldn't succeed at WWE. I don't know, like why was there so much time before they even flirted with the idea of this guy? Like he was like in hindsight, it just feels so stupid. Like
But do you remember
why
10
was
years
there?
10 years ago was different though. Like they were starting to bring in the indie guys, but they were putting them on, often putting them on NXT and often and even more often changing their names and giving them like, slightly WWE-ified gimmicks, Like that was sort of how things went. And I feel like he was a guy that actually, and I know he obviously had a pedigree above, he wasn't an indie guy. He was a TNA star, he was a New Japan star, so he certainly deserved better treatment. But I remember in my memory when they brought him in, it wasn't a guarantee that he would get better treatment. Like everyone was like, I think he'll be treated like the legit guy he is. But I remember being a little up in the air until he debuted, and then you're like, phew, okay, he's AJ Styles, he's important, he matters. Like, but I just think it was a different era. Things changed, pretty drastically in the 10 years in between. Now that's not that crazy at all. But I think back then it was somewhat shocking.
Right. I think you just nailed it though. It's like he's not just an indie guy. He was like being in the TNA system, even though they had less eyeballs, is not too dissimilar from the corporate Styles of WWE in a sense that like they were on TV every week. They had pay-per-views. They had big stars. He had mentors like Sting and Jeff Jarrett and like even some of those old WCW guys that like never that's went to WWE. Like Booker T was a TNA guy for a long time and Christian. So like, you know, he's not just an indie guy. He effectively ran a company that
Yep.
obviously was not very successful, but like relative to indies is like very successful. So uh I don't know. Like to me, it's it's just I don't know, it's just shocking. And especially because he's like such a solid guy and he's not like a small guy. He had a decent build. He could do a lot of amazing things in the ring, and he was just like a wrestler, you know what I mean? So I
Yep.
don't know.
You're totally right. Now, in retrospect, it does seem silly. Like it's, and he was, if there was anyone from the TNA, world that was a capital S star that they sort of developed and blossomed there, he was the one. And then, as you noted, when he went to New Japan, he just kicked it up a whole notch. Even though I don't know how closely, New Japan was on its upswing, obviously when he left, when the Bullet Club was blowing up, but he was. Yeah, I think that's further cemented his pedigree. Like, okay, this guy is a worldwide sensation now, not just the best guy TNA has ever produced. So it is obvious now, like this guy was going to make something of himself. But and the other documentary we were considering watching that they uploaded was the debut doc. It was a recap of his debut, which we didn't want to watch because I mean I think we've talked about that before in various contexts, and it's I'd rather have talked about this full year, especially because what we'll talk about pretty soon, which is the Mania match with Nakamura. But yeah, it is very clear in retrospect that this guy was going to be something, like he was not coming in to just look like a fool and, embarrass the company. Like he was going to earn his stripes almost certainly, and he did very quickly.
Yeah, and it, I mean, this and when we revisit all these feuds during this title run, it's a miracle that like they didn't spoil him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all of these things that made AJ interesting outside of WWE, they tried to resurrect, but they did such a shitty job of doing so that um, but ultimately, like his biggest feuds, his biggest matches were with just WWE guys because of the idea of like, hey, this is the star in the other show that, and these are dream match scenarios. Even though he was like obviously like at WWE for a while, but like you know, it's 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 the times where they try to like lean on the history outside the ring is actually when they flop the hardest, and when they just let him be a guy in WWE facing the other WWE guys, it was like, oh, that's when it actually worked really well for this guy. So,
Yep, I totally agree. And obviously that's a great segue to talk about the Nakamura match, which is a big part of this documentary, and I'll give them credit. Obviously, they cannot ignore the Mania match that occurs over this 365-day period. So I didn't expect them to blow past it. But when they started the segment on that match, I was like, geez, I wonder how they're going to cover this. And they sort of, I think, do both sides of it. They treat the build as interesting. Knock winning the Rumble, calling out AJ. Then like there's they like, oh, what's gonna happen? Everyone's all excited, and then they're like, and then the match happened, and then it was over, and it ended with a weird lame ending and then a low blow and then they fought a couple more times and like they sort of speed run through the final part of it, which you have to do because beating around the bush is this is one of the all-time recent disappointments and recent all-times of that those things don't really work together. But this is a huge disappointment in a Mania match, like, and like you said, it felt like they were just basically saying, hey, remember New Japan? They were both in New Japan and they fought once and now they're fighting again. And if you looked closer than that, there was not a lot there, and it just never really worked at all.
right. I mean, it made me question like, was their match in New Japan even good? Because this was bad. So what happened? But
And I don't think they even, I don't remember hearing that it was like, it wasn't obviously not like Omega Okada or anything. I don't think it is a like venerated match. I think it just seemed like, oh man, these guys are both, legends from in Japan. Like, surely they will be able to channel that into something. But it really exposed the issue, with it is there's just having Nakamura win the Rumble was a horrible idea because Nakamura, even though it was a great moment when it happened, but Nakamura can't really do promos. he's just his English is not great, and even then, he just doesn't really his aura is its own thing. It's not like he comes out and talks his way around stuff. Like certainly not in America at least. And so having an 8 week build to that match, I think was such a mistake. Even in the moment, they probably realized pretty quickly because what are you going to talk about for 8 weeks? What are you going to do? Especially when the story is these guys are going to have a match. Isn't that great? And then like
Yeah.
how often can you say that over and over again for 2 months?
Yeah, and it's yeah, the whole thing was like, hey, they had a match before, which you didn't watch, and we don't have
Yeah.
rights to. Uh,
Yes.
come check it out this next time. They seem pretty stoked about it though, and they're talking about it a lot as if we should be stoked. Um,
And that's
that,
it. That was the gist of it.
yeah, so I can't argue with that logic because there is a ton of it applied there, but I would say well, I can definitely say whether, like, while I can speculate whether a Nakamura title run was in the cards or would have been good or not good, what I can definitely say is whatever they ended up doing was affirmatively terrible. Like
Yes.
the turn and this whole like obsession with like low blows just became weird and then became like the whole crux of their rivalry. Like I understand like turning someone heel and stuff, but like it was just weird and not the matches were terrible and it didn't really lead to anything
And
positive. So
you might have a memory of this that I'm not thinking of, but I would argue that almost always, if you have obviously that wasn't the main event, there was just a title match on Mania because it was a one night show at that point. But having a big match at Mania in a feud that has gone on for more than a month that leads to more matches is almost always a mistake. There's just
yeah,
I can't think of many examples of a Mania match that was like step B in a D or C level feud or that's just a very stupid idea. Like Mania is not supposed to be about continuing stories. For the most part, it's about wrapping up stories.
I agree with that. Yeah, because yeah, not only did they have a definitive end to the Mania match and then this contrived heel turn, uh, leading to 2 to 3 more months of programming and just weird booking
Because
decisions.
AJ wins, so AJ wins, Nakamura low blows him. Why doesn't AJ just say like, I'm good with you. I beat you already. Like,
Yeah,
why do I give you more matches? I don't need to do that at all. I beat you clean.
I guess he was very upset with.
That he hit him in the balls.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Ow! This hurts way more than or my pride or whatever. It's been sullied.
I
It's just a
imagine
weird. It's they had no idea. They simply had no depth to it whatsoever there.
additional wrestling matches, I imagine, would hurt more.
Yeah, that's
30-minute
right.
matches. But
Like
yeah,
it's funny that that's like Brock Lesnar's weak point because like he has the low diverticulitis and the the lower body issues, but also he's a big monster and so it's like Mike Tyson's punch out rules, like you hit him in his weak spot. But AJ's just a normal size man. There's no he shouldn't
yeah.
his balls shouldn't be weaker than anything else.
Of course, you're referring to King Hippo, I would
Yes, of course.
imagine, right?
Yes.
And not Mike Tyson.
No,
He
but
was
Mike Tyson's
very
punch out
hard to
though.
defeat.
Like everyone had a lot of guys had their weak spots, right? Balls
There,
or belly or whatever.
the belly with the two little bandages
Yeah, it's
on. Um, and then, but then it followed. I mean, it was a good year for AJ because he had the belt and he did all that stuff. But like, he had two of like the lamest duck feuds of probably of his career because he then goes into Samoa Joe uh, feud, and those were just like three back to back to back matches of just really really weird booking decisions and prolonged like uh just TV segments and stuff. So
I like in theory, I remember Joe calling out AJ's wife. Like I like Joe being that sort of like Wendy. Like I think that's a fun idea. But yeah, there's not enough weight there for 3 months, Like it was he calls out AJ's wife, AJ gets pissed, AJ beats him. Like that's really it.
yeah, that was it.
But then there's more. There's no
But
it's
remember, these guys used to wrestle in a different company, so we have to care. It's
yes.
like, I guess,
Well, tied to that, like
perhaps.
you sort of touched on this earlier, and I think it's a weird thing about AJ. As much as we like him, and everybody pretty much likes him, what's his definitive WWE feud beyond Cena? Is there one? Is there anything that stands out? Ambrose, I guess. Like,
Yeah, maybe Ambrose.
But like
He
you
had a
said,
few.
and when he was the face of SmackDown, and when they were both sort of the faces of SmackDown, it probably was him. But I can't think of anything else that I genuinely look back. I'm like, what did he do for 10 years? Like I enjoyed him for most of that period when I'd watch him wrestle, but like he didn't have a ton else that was like really stands out. I can't think of who else he really shined with. Some good Roman matches, but they weren't really a program. That was sort of just every now and then they'd get involved in something.
Yeah, they went back to that well a few times.
Yeah.
I mean, he had. Did he really have a feed with Finn?
Like the matches in here, and like it's the crowd seems really excited for it, which is really funny because I'm like, who would care about that now?
Yeah,
Now
right.
AJ versus Finn, can you believe it? But yeah. I mean that maybe that's on the. I don't recall a like. I'm sure they had feuds because like I think the Good Brothers were going back and forth, like in terms of who their allegiance was with. So that probably was a feud there for sure, and to some extent.
Oh, I
Jinder,
seen.
he beat Jinder. Remember that? Jinder's in
I
this
do
for five
remember that. Yeah,
seconds.
yeah. I remember that was a big part of the beginning of this
Yeah.
where they almost did Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar. So
That's right. They must have made a graphic for that too, right? That was like a planned match, and then AJ won.
yeah, and it
That's
happened. It was like the first title or first title change overseas ever because they were
yes,
like, "Oh, we have to do this," and oh shit, we're in Manchester. Fuck it,
yeah.
whatever.
We got to get this belt off Jinder ASAP.
Yeah, I don't know why it took him so long,
But yeah, it's not
yeah,
really throwing shade at AJ. It's just like it's weird how his career worked so well, and he didn't have the sort of standout moments. But I guess like you sort of said again, that wasn't what he was all about. Like he wasn't really that kind of guy who would get caught up in lame angles or in his character sort of deviating. Like he sort of just was what he was, very consistent, and that was sort of his calling card.
yeah. I mean, he was there most weeks, and he his matches were objectively very good most times, and so I don't know. He just seems like the perfect WWE wrestler in
Hmm.
many ways, like on paper and stuff. So, it sounds like an indictment to say he didn't have that many great feuds. I mean, I think the sad part is he could have because of these out of like these extracurricular WWE or not extracurricular, but like just not WWE feuds that like where he has history with people like Finn and Joe and Nakamura, and it just never really materialized into anything, um, you know, bankable,
Hmm.
like nothing like
Super
lucrative.
memorable.
Yeah, like not it just wasn't good business, and so it's sad that that's the case. But like you know, but ultimately the fact that he has those really strong memories and people remember the Cena feud is I think you could just take that to the bank and live on it for 10 years pretty much, and that's all you really need, I guess.
Yeah, you're
I don't
very
know.
right. Like it is one of those things where, I didn't really think about it until we watched this documentary. But yeah, he really it's not a knock on him at all because the Cena feud is one of the best feuds of the last couple decades. Like it's in the top 5, top 10. Like it's I think and even that wasn't too crazy story-wise, but it was just so well executed. The matches were so good, and it's one of those rare showdowns between two guys from different companies, coming head to head in WWE that actually lives up to it. So it's really a great it's just it covers up for any deficiencies in how, like you said, the execution of various other angles and challenges and ideas. Like no, it's just it's all good because he had so many good matches with Cena. So it's funny how that works, but I agree that's exactly how I feel about it too. Is no regrets there because of how strong it was for him. So
I guess there was a Shane McMahon feud at some point.
oh, and Shane Man is in this for a second. I reminded because I guess AJ says he fought him at the previous Mania, right?
Yeah, he did.
Which is so stupid. Terrible.
Well,
The less we think about Shane McMahon, the better, I think.
if you feud with a man, though, you've made it
Yes, that's
in
right. Oh, he
WWE.
he was with Omos. Remember Omos?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm reading his Wikipedia. He
What
did,
about him?
yeah, a lot of time with the Good Brothers, a lot of time with Omos, just like some weird stuff.
Yeah,
But
and then he left.
yeah, but it's in the no stand on his career at all, which is the most interesting part. And like I said, a testament to what a great worker and seemingly what a great guy he is. So I have one final question for you before we wrap up here. Do you want him to stay retired? Do you want him to go to I mean, I always sort of assume I know they have a working relationship with TNA. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back there for a little while and does some work, or maybe he tries to go to A&W when he's free. Like, do you think there's more from AJ, or are you like honestly happy if this is the actual end?
I mean, there's stuff you can do with him in
He is
AEW,
48
obviously.
years old, so he's no spring chicken.
Mm, I mean, he could put together a match once a quarter at AEW and do something memorable there, I guess. I mean, but do I am I like clamoring for that? Like, I don't think so, but I guess it's more interesting than him doing nothing. I just wouldn't at this point. Like, if you're gonna do something with him in AEW, like, don't make him just one of the guys.
Yep.
Like, make it feel like the way they did gave the Sting treatment would be what I would recommend. Where it's like, make it really special, make it really infrequent, make it very, um, very mindful. Uh, don't just throw him against anybody. Like, I don't need to see him against like Speedball Mike Bailey or whatever. Like, it just that doesn't bias anything. So
Yeah, and he doesn't need like I mean, obviously Brian wanted to go there and actually wrestle again and had a bunch of amazing matches, but also then Brian was in the Blackpool Combat Club and was involved in like angles and stuff, which is fine. It didn't sully him either, but I don't think we need AJ to show up and insert himself against like Don Callis, as part of the weekly programming. Like it'd
yeah,
be great if he showed up and he's like, "I'm AJ Styles, I'm great." Like you said, like I'll see you at Double or Nothing, I'll see you at Full Gear. Like that would seem way more appropriate of a use.
yeah. If he's flirting with anything in the Don Callis family, we know someone has failed.
And I mean, we'll see, but it just seems like such an abrupt retirement that I obviously wouldn't be surprised if there's more to come. But it's if this is the end for him, it was a great run, and like we all look back fondly on him, and like it was nice to see this doc and say, again, something of substance is delightful, but just like see a good dude being a good dude, did not feel like you're being led astray or tried to be convinced of his credentials. You're like, no, this guy seems lovely, and it's nice to, and I enjoy this adventure with him on a WWE Network style documentary.
Yeah, he's a bulldog, but it's a very gentle, sweet
Yeah.
bulldog.
Well, there you go. If you want to hear us talk more about AJ Styles, we have talked about his Cena matches in the past. You can find our archives at awesometruth.libsyn.com. If you want new episodes of Awesome Truth, subscribe to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are delivered, we are there. Well, great to talk AJ. I'm sure we'll have, more AJ chat in the future, probably watch one of his matches again somewhere down the road. But for now, happy trails, rest up, hang out with your kids. AJ Jr., right? Isn't one of his kids named AJ too?
I believe so. Yeah.
There you go. Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be a wrestler, I
Get
read.
some
He's
gets.
he's trying to be a little wrestler guy, so that's neat.
Is he? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, I read that
Well,
somewhere. So nothing better
now,
than a family business. So
now AJ, regular AJ, will have plenty of time to play that Jaguar gaming system.
that's right. Oh, there's nothing better to go out on. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth will set you free.